It's time for the unofficial 40. Soonerscoop.com's very official recruiting podcast featuring Soonerscoop.com recruiting publisher Josh McCuistion. Get your recruiting fix from the leader in Sooner recruiting. It's the unofficial 40 with your hosts, Soonerscoop.com publishers Carey Murdoch and Josh McCuistion.
All right, welcome back. It is another edition of the unofficial 40. Carey Murdoch here in studio, along with Josh McCuistion back in his studio. And a lot of recruiting to get to in this episode. Bedlam coming up this weekend. You had some rumors swirling last night with the firing of Mark Helfrich, the Oregon coach, possibly Lincoln Riley getting involved there. But Joe Duvall is here in studio. Joe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great today, Carey. How you doing?
I am fantastic. I'm not really worried about how you're doing. I am worried about somebody else that is here in studio today.
Eddie Radosevich.
Eddie, how we doing this week? Are we okay?
I mean, I'm here. No, I'm doing a lot better. I'm in a lot better mood than I was last week.
You got past your wedding. I think you were. Yeah. We found out you were stressed out about this wedding that you were going to. It went good, though.
Everything was good.
Your best friend?
Yeah.
One of your best friends?
Mm-hmm.
But you weren't the best man. Was his brother the best man?
He has two brothers that were.
Oh, well, that's how.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it was fun, though.
So he really is your best friend?
Yeah. One of them.
So, like, he's not number one, though?
Yeah. I mean,
you
I would
always
say
have a number one best friend. Like, I have best friends. But, like, I have one. No, I mean, is everybody like this? Isn't every guy like this?
I think.
And if you're not like this, I think you're lying.
I think millennial. I think the millennial guys. We have best friends.
Yeah,
it's plural.
I couldn't pick a best man at my wedding. I had to go with like three guys.
So you said three groomsmen?
Well, I had four. I had four groomsmen.
You had three best men.
Yeah, basically.
You are such a millennial wuss boy.
There's like a group of four of us that we all really get along.
You gave a participation trophy to three people.
Three of my best friends.
You should have to pick one best man at a wedding.
Three of the best friends that anybody can
Josh,
have.
what did you do at yours?
I had a best man. Now, I will say I have pretty much the same group of friends I've had since basically my freshman year of high school.
Was your best man from Hendon?
The best friend within that group has kind of changed over the years.
Really?
Like it's been one guy. So I've got two or three that at any given point have been. But I had one best man. He was my guy, that kind of thing. There was, and even, and I didn't even choose my brother. I mean, that's always the easy way out is the brother. But, so that's guys. I got to give it to you. That's kind of millennial garbage. You got to pick a man and run.
See, I was my best friend's best man, but my other good friend, he chose a best man, and it wasn't me. So
that's kind of
and I was fine with it. No, I mean, well, he's dead now, so I mean, I can't really complain about it.
But if you don't get picked as the best man, then you can't pick that guy as the best man. Otherwise, it's like an imbalance in the relationship.
Everybody's going to be best men.
That's like one of the main reasons I haven't gotten married, I guess.
There for a reason, and then you have a best man.
Well, the best man's there to take on duties, and if you spread those duties out, those duties roll downhill a little bit, then the other guys can handle the duties.
You dutied it too many times.
Can I interrupt this program to break some news?
Yes.
The franchisee who created the Big Mac has passed away at the age of 98.
I saw that earlier. Yeah,
that is upsetting to me.
Are you guys Big Mac guys? I'm a quarter pounder double guy.
I'm a quarter pounder. I don't like the double because the double's just too much. But I like a good quarter pounder.
The Big Mac's
no onions.
The Big Mac's the best burger they have.
Actually, you know what? This is a fat guy admission here. I haven't been to McDonald's maybe in 2 years. But there was a time where I would go through and get a Big Mac and a quarter pounder with cheese.
Oh,
and that would be dinner.
Don't feel shame.
I shouldn't feel shame in that?
No, that just happens.
Like, screw the fries, the nuggets. But a quarter pounder and a Big Mac, that's a nice meal.
I have a legitimate fat guy meal from McDonald's.
Fries, too.
That's way worse than it, yeah.
The fries are only good, though, on the way home.
No,
that's the Chick-fil-A thing.
You don't eat the fries on the way home. You save them.
I eat the Chick-fil-A waffle fries on the way home, too.
You can throw those bad boys in the
oven. Have you noticed how pissy they are about giving you 4 sauces at Chick-fil-A? Like, they really don't want to give you 4 sauces. Because if you need
sauce
for your fries,
items, though,
Well, I don't like the.
So I got to get like 2 12 pieces.
I usually get an
But then
8 count
I'd need 6
sandwich.
I'd need 6 sauces.
See, I'm pretty conservative with the sauce. I can use
liberal.
2 and be fine.
I don't like that they ask. Just grab a handful of sauce, homie, and throw it in the bag.
But
Like,
it just became a thing like in the last couple of years. Like I always asked for 4 sauces and it was never a big deal. But like recently, like I specifically say when I order at the drive-thru for what do I get? Chick-fil-A sauce is what I get now since they changed all the things up. That's my favorite one. And like I'll get home and I only have 3 sauces. I'm like, you bastards.
the Chick-fil-A sauce is great. And if you do you save them when you don't use them all? Because then you
Go look in my refrigerator right
so
now.
we have a matching fridge. Because if you
Okay.
keep those bad boys, then it doesn't matter.
And sometimes I like to get 3 and then test a new one.
I don't like change.
See, I don't like.
But they
change either.
changed all their sauces. So
I stay in the Polynesian and honey mustard sometimes, but other than that, I don't even.
honey mustard is the
I
devil's
have a
sauce.
buddy that will go through Taco Bell at late night after the bars, and he will get a sack of fire hot sauce.
And do what with it?
Use all of it
On what?
on everything that he gets, like the $35.
Oh, I thought you meant all he did was go
Oh
through the drive-thru and got sauce.
No. He'll
Like,
get
is he just drinking the sauce?
pretty much. He will pay him, like, tip him extra. He goes through and, like, it used to be a weekly thing with Cole. He would go through and spend like $50 on Taco Bell.
God, this is the weirdest conversation that we're having to start.
Welcome
And
to
then
the Fat Guy Podcast.
It's followed. It's followed by someone sending me. They're out ring shopping. I'm not going to say who
Oh,
it is. I
man.
don't want to spoil anything.
Ooh. Well, we better give him the best man talk if
right.
if he's getting hitched.
I'm gonna tell him he can spread it out, and it's not a big
He
deal.
has brothers, and they're very close. So I think he's probably going to have to. Like my brother, I was my brother's best man.
Yeah.
And I really didn't feel like. Anyway, this is totally no. We're stopping.
We can
this.
talk Bedlam. We've choked him up.
I just coughed. Okay, no. What we want to start with is recruiting because it's going to be a nice weekend for the Sooners, and I know Josh has some. Well, he has some legitimate breaking news right off the bat.
Yeah, last night, and it showed up early on the board this morning that there were some rumors out there and even some reports that Addison Gumbs was going to take an official to Texas A&M, and that apparently there was belief around College Station that A&M might flip him. For those who aren't familiar, Gumbs, Rivals 100 outside linebacker, the highest-ranked guy in Oklahoma's class right now, and really a huge land for Oklahoma and California. But talking to his dad and talking to him this morning, really, I guess to start talking with his dad, I couldn't get a feel. His dad kind of didn't want to comment, didn't want to say too much. And then Addison just comes out with not true. I mean, it was as direct as it could be. So I get the impression, I talked to him a little bit more, talked about just can't wait for all this to be over. He's just kind of tired of all these rumors. This came up a few weeks ago as well. So I think this is a kid that, I don't know that he's telling everybody no. I get the impression that maybe some around him would not so much don't want him to go to OU, just want him to look around a little bit, and that hasn't happened. And so I think you're getting these rumors that really kind of persist. But at the end, I think he's really locked in with Oklahoma pretty well.
It's the season for the rumors.
100%.
Yeah, and it is because it's one of the, Eddie, like you're our guy during the games, during the season. If I hear something, I'm like, Eddie, hey, check and see if you see this dude hanging around. He may or may not be there. I just don't know. And you can look. This time of year, you're not there on Saturdays. You're not there at the game. You can't say, hey, I mean, obviously you are, but in an A&M situation, their season's over. There's no way to check this stuff. There's no way to say, this is definitely right or wrong. So you get this stuff where it just is like these endless rumors that won't go away until something's truly finalized.
I'm curious, Josh, how does I kind of know how the fans and we deal with that uncertainty. How does Oklahoma and the coaching staff deal with the uncertainty of Addison Gumbs and those rumors right now?
Well, I can say, and this is something that I actually didn't know, and talking to his dad, he let me know about. Bob and Mike actually were out there on Sunday for the first day of in-home visits. So Oklahoma went right in, made a point to make it clear, you're a priority. We want you here. And they know that there's a reason this guy is so wanted, why we've got him so highly ranked at Rivals. he's one of the best outside linebackers in the country. And in Oklahoma's defense, there are a few positions that could be more important. If he can create that pressure, that's a big thing. So Oklahoma really did. I mean, it wasn't just Mike. It wasn't just Kish. They took Bob out there, and that's going to be your silver bullet almost every time. So I think Oklahoma made it clear to him, you're important, you're a part of our plan. And Gums is even more important because he's a January enrollee. So he, in about a month's time, he'll be getting ready to move to Norman and report if all things stay to plan.
So coming up this weekend, Bedlam, really last chance. It should be. I mean, whether we're going to talk about that, but I think it could kind of hang off until later in the game. But it should be it's your one last chance to really impress guys with a full crowd, stadium renovations, all that stuff. So let's talk about what the expectations for this weekend are.
Well, I think you've got to be pretty optimistic. I mean, Oklahoma's got a pretty wide range of guys coming in. You've got 4 commitments coming in with Grant Calcaterra, Kennedy Brooks, Levi Draper, and Marquise Hayes. And that always gets overlooked because you've already got those guys on the books. But when those guys get to be around the guys who aren't committed, they get to sell the program for you. They're going to do it. They're going to be the ones that are out, after the game on Saturday night, running around with the players and the current commitments and all that. So you get that nice balance. And I think that's where you start. But when you look at the guys that I think, the question everybody wants to know, who might commit? I think the most likely are Noah Daniels, the defensive back offer, who they offered just this week from the Clear Creek, from the Houston area in Clear Creek High School. He's a guy that I think is a very likely commitment. I think he was very excited when OU offered him, was a longtime Baylor commitment. I think he's a guy that has kind of emerged late, big-time speed guy, and Oklahoma seems pretty intrigued by him. The other is another Houston area guy, Joshua Rogers, a defensive lineman, has a lot of quality offers. I think there's just a question for him is if A&M is that serious about him. I think Oklahoma's always made him feel like a priority, and with A&M, I think there's a real question there for him. So I think that's going to be those are the two guys I would say those are the most likely commitments. Marquise Brown, JUCO wide receiver from California, also a possibility. But those, like I said, those are the first two that I mentioned. I think those are the most likely. Brown, I expect him to take a few more official visits, but I do think Oklahoma's in a good spot.
Josh, you mentioned Brown. I think the wide receiver position is going to be one of the more interesting aspects of this weekend, not only because of Brown, because Rivals 100 receiver James Robinson is also scheduled to be in town from Florida. How do you see that kind of shaking out? How the wide receiver position, the numbers, and those guys coming in?
I think the thing to point out with Robinson, I think Brown and just the slot position in general, that's a must. Oklahoma has to find a slot receiver, whether it's Marquise Brown or Gavin Holmes, the guy they're starting to pick up interest with from the Fort Worth area. There's something has to give there. They just don't have enough players at slot and probably don't have that difference maker. Unless, maybe they're really counting on Michael Jones to make a big step into next year. Whatever the case, I think they need another slot. Outside, I think it's a luxury. I think they're looking at that as if we can get the right guy, whether it's Robinson or Joseph Lewis from California, those guys are just elite talents. Robinson, to me, with the exception of Joseph Lewis, is the most physically gifted receiver in the 2017 class. He is a freaky guy with the things he can do. 6'3", 6'4", legitimately a sub 4.5 guy. I mean, he is everything you want, and he's what you talk about when you talk about these big SEC-style receivers that, end up as first-day draft choices. So I think Oklahoma's going to have to balance that, but they're so different as players. I don't think you run into that situation where you've got to pick one or they're going to feel some, maybe they're not getting the attention that they want. I don't think that's going to be a problem. I think Oklahoma can balance that pretty easily.
That Robinson kid is a specimen. We saw him in Atlanta. That guy is, right? He's huge.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
How much radio you been doing lately, Josh?
It's been pretty quiet for me. Now, I have my weekly spots in East Texas, which are pretty popular in the Tyler and Lufkin areas.
And they ask you about just OU?
Yeah. I mean, they and it's always weird when I do this stuff because I think because I'm involved with the site, they assume I'm like you guys and I'm there every week, like at the press conferences. So I have to word things really uniquely, like, because I don't want to present something that's untrue that I'm there, but at the same time, I don't want to present that like, yeah, I just watched this on my computer just like you guys did. I don't know what to tell you about this. So you kind of got to walk a really interesting line.
Do you know why I'm asking you how much radio you've done lately?
Oh God, I'm yelling, aren't I? Damn it. Damn it.
We'll go back into post editing and just bring you down just a little.
But it doesn't matter though. You can bring him down. He's still
Hitting the top.
Oh my!
He's like a kid on Christmas. You can just feel him get excited.
You really are excited today.
How dare you? I
don't know. I see now. I'm like, I don't really want to talk about this. I'm gonna do my Michael Jackson, talk real softly.
Need to be natural. Just natural, Josh. You know.
You
have a really nice microphone. I mean, it picks up natural speech really well.
I know. It's not like, and it's not a conscious decision. You guys know me. I'm not someone that yells over people. Like, that's not my style at all. I don't know why I get so loud, and I don't think I'm particularly loud on the phone either. I don't know why.
Maybe you just need to pretend like your daughter is always right there in the room with you. Like you don't want to scare her.
Well, right now, Lainey is going through a small phase where everything pretty much has to be a yell. Like if I say it, she's automatically going to do the opposite. She is wildly ornery at the moment.
Good luck the next about 15 years, I guess.
Seriously. Yeah. Well, she was her mom for the first 2 years, and I really had hope that life was going to be really easy, but she's starting to show some of my characteristics, and that's not good for anybody.
Let's very naturally discuss remaining scholarships, what OU can do in terms of, moving guys back or moving scholarships back, early enrollees, that stuff. Where is OU on all of that right now?
Well, you look at the chart, and it's something we always keep on the site for those that, don't read the site every day. We have a scholarship distribution chart that breaks down things by position, by class, so you can always see where OU stands. Right now, Oklahoma has 72 scholarship players on the roster. They're going to graduate 10 seniors. So that automatically, you're looking at 62 scholarship players returning, forgoing any possible transfers or NFL draft entries or whatever, it may be. So Oklahoma automatically has 23 open spots. And so you're looking at, probably more like 27, 28, maybe even 29 as far as, because you are almost inevitably going to get some transfers. You're going to get some, like it or not, probably an NFL draft entry or two. So I think that's going to open up some spots for Oklahoma. And really, when you look at it, it's almost unanimously on the defensive side of the ball where you're seeing these last 8-9 spots kind of fill up. At offensive tackle, you've got Adrian Ely and Chuck Filiago, which is the two that Oklahoma would like to bring in. At wide receiver, I think it's a minimum of one, maybe two. They're done at running back. They're done at quarterback. They're done at tight end. So really on offense, you've got two positions still in play. On defense, you're looking at a minimum of two more defensive linemen, probably three. Linebacker, at least one, maybe two. Defensive back could be two or three. So, I mean, there are just a lot of pieces still to happen. And the thing that, people always get confused about, and it came up on the board today, and I think maybe it's what you were driving at, Carey. The thing to remember with these early enrollees is they can count towards last year if that fits. And Oklahoma signed a smaller class last year, so they can kind of shove those guys back and still fit within the 25 signees per class. So it kind of allows you to move some things around. And as long as you run under that 85 limit, which Oklahoma, because they have so few scholarship players right now, shouldn't be a problem. So pretty much anybody that OU wants that can enroll early, they can take. So there's not a problem where they're going to have to choose, as they did a few years ago, Trevor Knight or Taylor McNamara. They get to just, if you can come in early and you're part of this class, we want you. So that's a nice deal for Oklahoma. And like I said, because of the fact that last year was a little bit of a smaller group, they can shuffle their numbers a little bit.
You are such a natural talker right now, Josh. I'm so impressed with you.
Oh, it's such a conscious effort, too. Like, I'm really trying
you sound
not
good
to.
Now.
But
yeah. Well, and Eddie kind of took a shot at a guy on Twitter I saw that it was right after Bob announced that Quick was no longer on the team. And some dude on Twitter was like, when are we going to have a discussion about Bob running off all these people?
Oh, yeah.
But
that guy complains about everything, though. So it's more.
I've never noticed him before.
Yeah,
I was fixing to say, can we narrow the field on Eddie's Twitter wars lately? I mean, the man's been literally, he's carrying a sword and bloodied at the moment.
We'll get to.
I'm running out of body bags
here in a bit. Here's the thing, like, they've given so many walk-on scholarships, and they're still. I mean, Eric Wren and Nick Basquin, and who else am I missing? Didn't they give a third one to somebody this year?
Connor Knight.
Connor Knight, yeah. So I mean, they're like giving away scholarships to guys that are walk-ons, and they're still below, so far below the 85 limit. But it's just like, I mean, that just to me that signifies how terrible the injury bug has been on this team. I mean, Daniel Brooks and Tay Evans is that's unbelievable. The guy has to give up his career before he barely even gets started.
That's the problem. It's kind of been a storm after another. I mean,
Charles
it's been a
Walker,
really
Matt
awkward.
Diamond. I mean,
they've had guys quit during the middle of the season after playing in 4 games and deciding that they're ready for the NFL. I mean, it's kind of been a awkward year in that.
That was brought up Monday, wasn't it?
I think Hoover asked.
Hoover asked about the attrition or whatever.
And Bob said
probably could have got an answer if it was anybody but.
Right. Bob said, we do the same thing that we've been doing from the beginning, and there's been no real change.
But you go on with Hoover? You taking shots at him?
I'm not taking shots. I'm just saying if anybody would have asked that anybody else, Bob probably would have given a better answer. Because he had already made him mad about the Texas
I think he would have
stuff.
been defensive no matter what. I mean, you say, what's wrong with your program? Your numbers are. He's going to be defensive.
Yeah.
No matter who asks.
But he had already asked him about all the Texas stuff, so it's kind of like
isn't that an easy way to, you can say, look at what we're doing with all this crap that's happening on our. I mean, because there's a lot of stuff you can fault OU for. A lot of what's happened this year, I don't know how you prepare for that. I don't know how you say, oh, yeah, we could have foreseen this rash of injuries and a guy quitting on us, one of our key pieces just quitting on us. Like, I don't know. You could argue this is one of their. No, I wouldn't argue it's one of their better coaching jobs. But it's pretty resilient for the whole staff.
To lose Sterling Shepard and to come back and be one of the most prolific offenses in OU history.
Patchwork offensive line.
Yeah, the offensive line coming together. I mean, Bill Bedenbaugh and Lincoln Riley deserve a ton of credit. Now, the defensive side, no, they've been worse this year.
Yeah.
And when Hoover asked that question,
and special teams are actually pretty damn good this year.
I thought that more guys had just quit the team. You just kind of felt like that since it had just kind of been so consistent throughout the year. People
remember,
leaving,
we made a list of like everybody, and we had a hard time remembering Cody Ford being out. But
most of them were injuries. I mean, really, Charles Walker, Matt Diamond.
Charles Walker, no, I'm not counting that as an injury.
No. These guys just left. I'm saying these last 3 just left.
Yeah, they screwed up.
Yeah, Mackay quit, kicked off the team, but the rest have just been injuries. I mean,
Amani Bledsoe, I would consider that.
Well, that's
non-injury.
True. That's true. The PED use,
suspension.
which gets asked every week, and Bob Stoops still has no update about Amani Bledsoe.
He hasn't gotten results back yet.
So awesome that he got suspended for steroids.
His nickname's Moose too. I always just imagine whoever's the tester walks in the locker room and he hears hey Moose. All right, we're gonna test the guy named Moose. That makes that pretty easy. The guy that's big, Bear probably. We're going to test that guy. Anybody named after a large animal is going to get steroid tested.
Yeah, probably don't have a nickname. Like Unicorn. Make that a nickname.
If you're going to do steroids, yeah. Or performance-enhancing drugs.
Dragonfly.
Ooh, I like that one. Although that was a pretty crappy Kevin Costner movie.
And a really bad vodka. Was it or whiskey or something?
Dragonfly?
I don't remember that.
Dragonfly. It was like the iced tea vodka or whiskey.
Never heard of that before.
It was disgusting, but I drank it for about a solid 2 months.
Okay. Was that in the Fiji house or something?
Probably, yeah.
Fiji house days?
You do things you have to do with cheap liquor.
But basically, so this class, I mean, tell me, Josh, like, early enrollees, let's talk about that real quick. I mean, for people that don't know or aren't huge scoopers that haven't followed this a lot, guys that are in high school, Austin Kendall was the guy a year ago, was able to come in, graduate high school early, didn't go to his prom. Who are those possibilities for this class right now? Who are the definites and who are the maybes? That maybe is the best way to ask.
Well, now, see, I'm always going to try to attribute this stuff to memory, and I'm going to end up butchering it a little bit. But there are, if I remember at my last count, I believe there are at least 9 guys that are already committed that are considering it. Let me kind of walk through the list here. Like I mentioned, Addison Gums is definitely a possibility. Let me try to. Jeremiah Hall, the kind of tight end H-back from North Carolina. He's going to be an early enrollee. Trey Sermon's a big one, the running back from Georgia. He's expected early. Grant Calcaterra, the tight end from California. One of the guys that's a maybe is Marcellus Sutton, the Lackawanna Junior College kind of running back, all-purpose guy that they're going to use, kind of as a slot guy, as a return guy. Going to be used in a lot of the ways that I think people wanted to see Roy Finch used, half a decade ago. I think that's what you're going to see with him. Justin Broyles, one of the leaders of the class. I think that's going to be really big for Oklahoma because you get in those last couple visit weekends in January. Well, who would you rather be your mouthpiece when these kids come in than Justin Broyles? I mean, that guy's going to sell your program from word go. So I think that's big. One of the news stories is Levi Draper is actually going to enroll early, the Rivals 250 linebacker from the Tulsa area. He'll be on campus early now. I think that's big for Oklahoma with where their inside linebacker numbers are going to be going into the spring, with the graduation of Jordan Evans. So Oklahoma needs bodies, and Draper obviously is more than just a guy. I mean, he's a guy that could contend for early playing time next year. And the last one that I know for sure is Chris Robinson from Mesquite Horn, the Rivals 100 quarterback. Another guy, he's going to come in, he's going to redshirt. Nobody's expecting him to come in and start day one or anything like that. But the more time a quarterback gets in this offense, obviously the better it is, as we all saw with Austin Kendall having a really nice spring game and, has looked good in his moments on the field so far this year.
Could be interesting, too, getting Robinson in, especially before any coaching decisions are made. Or, if Riley were to leave, I guess he'd already be on campus at the beginning of January. And I guess what I'm saying is it'll be interesting to see how all that is handled. And if Lincoln Riley were to leave and go to a different school, if Robinson would still get to Norman by the start of the second semester come January.
Yeah, that would be really interesting because I think Chris has, for so long, sworn off any other schools that I don't even know how that would play out. I don't know if that would be something he would even look into because he's just so tied into Oklahoma at this point. I mean, I saw him in his last game, and he was talking about, when he's going to move up there and what his plans were. He was already that far down the line with it, so I don't even know if something like Riley leaving did happen, how he would push the reset button at that point.
That's a tough position to try to do that with late because, most teams, or at least elite teams, would have their quarterback wrapped up for 8-9 months already at that point. There's not going to be a lot of spaces for him to go.
I would wonder what would happen with Riley's staff too, like offensive staff. Beanbo's already here, Kale was already here, Bullware was already here, Simmons came when he came. Who am I missing?
That's it. Gundy.
So he's obviously here. But yeah, that it would be really the whole thing would be really interesting. And there was the rumor that came out last night. I think Football Scoop was it .com?
Yeah, I think so.
Put it out there that they had contacted Riley, or there had been some contact. George Schroeder from USA Today does a lot of stuff with us at the Sports Animal too. He came from Oregon. He was in Oklahoma. He went out to Oregon. He's as connected as anybody. He kind of put the brakes on that stuff last night, talking I think like to Alan Kinney that does the SB Nation blog.
Blatant homerism.
And he was just kind of commenting on things, and I noticed. I think it was him. George kind of said,
"Yeah,
look, it's not gonna happen yet for him." Not in a
he
place
was saying
like Oregon.
He was kind of saying the same thing, and George was like reaffirming.
Phil Knight's gonna go out and get a really big. They're not. This is the first time they fired a coach in 40 years. This is a huge deal, and I'm sure they'll test the waters with Chip Kelly, see what he thinks, if he wants to come back or not and leave. And you wouldn't know if you got Chip Kelly back there, he's going to be there. He's not going back to the NFL, which would be something that I'm sure Florida wishes they could have done with Steve Spurrier way back when.
Yeah, they probably do. I think they're fine now, though. McElwain. He seems. I didn't realize
That's fine now, but they went through the Ron Zook.
Oh
period.
yeah, they went through some really dark ages, I guess, decades, really.
But Sonny Dykes, I guess, is the name that's come out for Baylor a little bit last night.
I still don't understand.
The Chad Morris thing fell apart, which was good, but I don't think that Lincoln Riley would have taken the SMU job.
I don't think
I
so
think he
either.
can hold out for better.
I'm under the impression that, and this is just my complete guess on the situation, but I think that Lincoln realizes. I don't want to say that Lincoln realizes where he's at, but I do think that he kind of he understands college football. He's not going to just take a job to be taking a job just to take a job at 33.
Yeah.
So I think he has one more year in Norman. I don't know. That's just my hunch.
It's been weird watching coaching vacancies be filled through Norman before. I mean, I think back to when it all started. I mean, Mike Leach, obviously, after 1 year, got the Texas Tech job. You take that job. I mean, that was a good job for him coming from Kentucky and he was actually a true coordinator for the first time when he was at Oklahoma because Hal Mumme was considered the coordinator when he was with him at Kentucky. And so that was the perfect job for him. Mark Mangino, Kansas, made total sense. Career assistant, had been in that area. Chuck Long, San Diego, probably could have gotten a better job, but at the same time, I think that was what he wanted to do with it. He wanted to be a head coach. He wanted to have his own program.
They paid him a lot of money too, didn't they?
Yeah.
San Diego State
Paid him a lot of money to leave too.
Oh, maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
San Diego's not a bad place to go either.
No, except for it costs you a whole lot to buy a house. And the weird one was Kevin Sumlin because he goes to Houston. He was never an offensive coordinator. Parlays that into the Texas A&M job. Obviously a really good coach. And then you have a guy like Kevin Wilson who sat around forever and was frustrated by it and didn't understand. Lost out like on Southern Miss and Iowa State to Gene Chizik. They hired him instead of Kevin Wilson. Ends up at Indiana, and he would have gone somewhere lesser. He would have gone to a non-Power 5 conference if he would have had the opportunity. I think even maybe Louisiana Tech or somebody like that. He had all kinds of interviews and stuff, but nobody would hire him. And it was just sometimes you can wait too long. That's the ridiculously long point I'm getting at. Yeah,
because I think a lot of guys want to hold out for a tier 1 job from a coordinator position, but I don't know, look at a guy like Larry Fedora, right? He left Oklahoma State and he went to Southern Miss, right? Then North Carolina. You can work your way up that way. I mean, just going to a non-Power 5 school doesn't automatically keep you from continuing to rise. Although
a lot of ADs just want to hire a head coach, they don't want to hire a coordinator.
Right. So you can say, hey, I've run a program before. I'm a head coach. I'm successful. But I do know, or at least I heard from a source when Lincoln Riley first came to Oklahoma, that he was probably thinking that this was going to be his last job before the last job. That he wanted to turn this position into a tier 1 coaching position. He didn't want to go to some place like Toledo after this and have to work his way up again that way. That this was going to be the final jumping point, whether or not he has to stay here till Bob retires or someplace like Oregon comes calling now or in a few years. I think that's what he would want to do. I think that's probably where his mind's at. Now, I don't know where it's at now, if it's changed, but I think that's what his mentality was coming into this job.
Here's where it works for guys like Lincoln Riley. It works at smaller schools that don't have the assistant coach budget. Like Mike Leach, Washington State could take a chance on him because he would come in. They wouldn't have to have an offensive coordinator. They'd have a head coach, an offensive coordinator. They'd just have to worry about defense. Texas Tech is kind of the same way. Cal's the same way with Sonny Dykes. Baylor was the same way with Art Briles, even though Kendall was kind of calling the plays there by the end. But Lincoln Riley has a lot of places he could go, a lot more places he could go if he wanted to, than say like a Brent Venables. Because people look at Brent Venables and say he's going to have to bring, what kind of offense is he going to run? Is it going to be up-tempo? Are the fans going to like it? With Lincoln Riley, you have an offense to start with. You have an offensive coordinator, and you really just need one guy.
Yeah, I definitely don't think that Riley would be the type of guy that would take a head coaching job and then hire an offense coordinator, is he?
No, hell no.
He's a guy that he wants to be hands-on.
He's going to be just like Mike Leach, yeah.
This is his thing. And I've
and
never really thought
you?
of... No, I completely agree. If you're going to run your offense, you better be the one that's running it and knowing what buttons to push.
Who's the most successful guy to do that in college football? To call his own plays, run his own offense, have his hands on everything. Urban Meyer, would he be that guy?
No, because Tom Herman was his offensive coordinator.
Herman's still kind of...
I mean, I'd say probably Mike Leach. I think that's who Oregon should go after personally, but I know it probably will never happen.
It won't, just because his personality.
Yeah.
And he doesn't do booster stuff.
Yeah, I don't see. You don't think he's going to be kissing Phil Knight's ass?
No, he and Phil Knight, he'll write a book about how much he hates Phil Knight if he went to Oregon.
It's so funny that Riley came from that tree because they couldn't be two different personalities. But that's his protege. That's his mentor is Mike Leach.
But Mike Leach is crazy.
Yeah, no one's really like Mike Leach, I guess you're right.
Oh, I going back to the
You'd love to have Mike Leach as your offensive coordinator, but
yeah,
you don't want him as your head coach if you're a big-time program.
No way.
Yeah, just ask yourself, would you want Mike Leach to be the head coach at Oklahoma?
Yes, absolutely. That'd be awesome.
It'd be awesome.
This room
not
would
from
like
a
it.
media perspective, from a fan perspective. If Oklahoma had Mike Leach as their head coach, their defense would be exactly like it is now, forever. With
Washington
no hope
State's
of
actually
improvement.
playing pretty good defense right now.
They didn't against Washington.
Nah, that was really bad.
I'm sorry, I interrupted your
I don't know how
point.
the Pac-12, how good the Pac-12 total is.
I think you're going to make a point about Dana Holgerson.
Oh, I was just saying that how fun that room would have been with Holgerson, Riley, and Leach when Riley was talking about it last week.
Yeah.
Made me start thinking about those times, and I bet sitting around in Lubbock, I bet it was a lot of fun to be those guys.
Let's say late night Taco Bell nights or something. Or was it Pizza Hut? And they would just watch film together.
Yeah,
Be a fly on that wall.
that'd be awesome.
Okay, Josh, anything we want to hit on recruiting before we kind of move into Bedlam here?
Obviously we've talked a lot about the visitor list, and I think obviously, we touched on it last week. Oklahoma's got a couple of big-time backs coming in 2018 and 2019 classes. They're getting a head start on some of that. And I don't think we've even scratched the surface of all the guys that are going to be there. I'm still working on that, still confirming a lot of names. So this should be a big visit weekend. And like you guys said, it's going to be interesting when you talk about guys like James Robinson from Florida, like I mentioned, the California guys that are coming in, and the potential nasty weather where these guys have never seen anything like this. So it's interesting talking to them. They're like, oh man, I'm bringing 2 coats, or I'm bringing 3. I mean, they're preparing for nuclear winter coming in because they just don't have anything to frame it. And some guys end up really loving it. I know Kenny Stills, that was something he talked about, really enjoying kind of the whole winter feel, and kind of, I guess, getting the impression that's what football was supposed to be like. And then some guys are like, man, that's too cold for me. That's just not my thing. So it'll be interesting to see how guys kind of react to, what is a pretty typical Oklahoma December day.
I think Kenny Stills just realized all the women go inside in the same bars. So that's where I want to go.
That's where I need to be.
Because he just didn't, Eddie, you know this, didn't he just live between 747 and Fuzzies on the weekends?
Pretty much.
Maybe hit Logies or Logan's, whatever it was then.
He lived for the nightlife.
He and Joe Powell and Tony Jefferson.
They were awesome. It was good. It was good to be around in Norman.
And
during
you
that
lived
period.
on campus basically then. You lived right down the street.
Yeah, I knew. I bumped into them quite a bit.
Now you're too old.
I know, way
creepy.
too old. That would be very creepy if I was still hanging out at 747. Actually,
Saturday night or Friday night.
I mean, it wouldn't be too creepy if it was a Saturday game day, but I might have to stay around Norman this
Yeah, a
weekend.
lot of old people do stick around. They don't know their place, don't they? On Saturday.
Well, I
nights.
think that it's just on game days, especially. It's,
go to Pub W or something if you're old.
No, you can stay at 7.
No, you can't.
Yeah.
Not if you're 30.
Yeah, you can, for sure. It's like the founding fathers going back to the fraternity house.
Okay. But you had to have been at school when 747 existed to go back there. Should that be a rule?
Yeah, it could be, but I mean,
if you're 40,
that's right in my wheelhouse.
you have no business being there.
35 is probably the age cutoff.
Because it's a cool place for cool people.
I would think so.
The beautiful people.
I would think so.
All right. Okay, here's one thing I did want to talk about recruiting. This past week, because it was really interesting. I think it was Bob kind of took exception, and we all like Bob Przbillo, so I'm not trying to throw him under the bus. But Bob asked Bob about if the schedule was gonna not be as filled with recruiting because of Bedlam, and he was like, "Don't tell me my schedule." And Josh, I mean, you've kept track with. I mean, Bob he's been nuts. He's been going everywhere.
He really has. I mean, we talked about Gums. He went and saw Levi Draper and Isaiah Thomas earlier this week.
Calcaterra, right?
For a game weekend, man, it's been a pretty impressive early run for him.
Yeah, and he should see Trey Brown this weekend too. He said he was going to stop by the Union North.
Yeah, I don't even think he's going to be able to watch the entire game. Like maybe if I'm him and I'm a dad, I plan it out so I'm there for the second half. Just because you want to see the end of it.
I mean, what's he have to do? I don't understand
he has
that.
to go to other games.
I mean, I guess, but I don't know.
I mean, what other games with commits are out there?
I don't think there are any Friday night.
Or maybe he has to go down to Dallas.
I don't know. I didn't get that comment about, I'll be there for a period.
Here's what it could be about. He kind of made it like, I'll show up for a little bit. I don't think he wants to make it out because he's got so many ties to Union and kids that he's recruiting. He doesn't. I think he this week he got kind of freaked about making it. He must have got some comments when he talked about Norman North and how much he liked their coaching staff and what a great job they were doing. Like he might have got some blowback from, I don't know, Trey Brown or somebody like, Coach, you need to quit talking those guys up because we're going to beat them or something. I don't know.
I would be shocked if that was the case because I know after that game, Patrick Fields, the OU offer junior, sent me a text and was like, "Man, that Charlie Kolar kid's the real deal." So I don't think there's any animosity there from Union towards. I think Bob just likes to keep this spotlight off him. He wanted it to be on his kids, and he just kind of was deflecting.
Yeah.
At that point, he just kind of wanted it to be on Drake and Isaac, let them have their moment.
If somebody had a problem with him supporting his kids, he should pull their offer to them tomorrow. Honestly.
Well, that's going to be interesting. It's going to be really cool seeing everything. We're still kind of working out our schedule. Second year in a row, it's like I'm going to make a wall of these. What I'm holding in my hand, it's the Josh McQuistion 2016-2017 OSSAA playoff pass. 2 years in a row, Josh. I got two of them. Skins.
I'm really going to try to avoid railing because I know Eddie's going to jump on with me. And
no,
this
go
is just
ahead.
This is.
I know where this is going.
We'll smooth it over with Van Shea.
It's just one of those things like, you always talk about, well, this doesn't make sense for me as a reporter. This doesn't make sense for anyone. I don't understand how scheduling, and I certainly get, I want to make it clear, a semifinal game is not the same thing as a championship game, but you have 6A1, 6A2, and 5A competing against each other for attention. Like, why would you do that? That would be like in the NFL. Do they schedule their playoff games opposite one another? Hell no. They stagger them out so as many people as possible can see them, as much attention as possible can be given to them. And I don't know why you would do this. It just doesn't make any sense financially. It doesn't make sense for the kids who want to have a big crowd in front of them. It doesn't make sense for the people that want to travel. Just high school football fans that love to go see games. I don't understand why you would do this. And I keep hearing, the coaches prefer to play on a Friday night. You know what? That's great. You're hurting your product. You're making yourself a lesser entity and a lesser deal by doing every game at Friday night at 7 o'clock. It doesn't make any sense to do it this way. And they used to have a great plan. And I understand that there were some problems between the OSSAA and Boone Pickens, not Boone Pickens himself, but the stadium and renting it from OSU. I get all of that, but there are other alternatives. There are ways you can do this. Texas does it. Missouri does it. Illinois does it. There's a ton of states that do these big state championship weekends. And for Oklahoma to say, okay, we're going to give a week off to 6A1 and 6A2, and then we're going to play them all at the same time anyways, why the hell would you do that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Because the OSAA doesn't care about the kids. I think honestly, I've never thought they did. Going back to high school when they would make stupid decisions, I can remember thinking that the OSAA they don't care about anybody else but themselves, and that's why I think it's a poorly run organization.
What's really strange is the old way, even when I was coming up, they would be able to televise the state championship games. Like you could watch, Justin Fuente, play for Union on television against Marcus Nash, the kid from Edmond North, was it back then? Went to Tennessee.
That sounds right that they played Edmond North, but I can't remember exactly.
But, I mean, I just remember watching that stuff on TV growing up, and it was like you could watch 6A, you could watch 5A, you could watch 4A. And now they've got Channel 9 in the mix that wants to broadcast the games.
That's the first year that's happened.
It's the first year that's happened, but I think that's good that you now have local affiliates that want to broadcast your games and probably pay you for it.
Yeah, well,
and you're doing this.
But when you go back to like last year and stuff in the playoffs, you couldn't watch anything but the championship games on TV. You couldn't get it online. Schools couldn't even put them out online.
Yeah,
it's like why are you trying to funnel all this through TV? And it's because of money. I mean, it's probably Mary Fallon's fault, to be honest. We really want to get down to the bottom of it.
She'll be gone soon, apparently.
Yeah. But, I mean, I don't understand it. I've never understood the decisions that they make. And, it's the small things. It's Norman North having to travel to Tulsa to play Tulsa Union. I don't see how they make decisions that they think are fair and down the middle.
High School Stadium is pretty nice.
It's really nice. It'd be a great place to play. But I don't know.
Well, even if you wanted to say, okay, we're going to have it in one of the two teams' hometown, Union or North beat them straight up. They were the district champions, not Union. So if anybody's got to travel, it's Union.
Yeah.
I mean, that only makes sense. But I agree with you guys. Like, I'd rather it be in the middle. That's not what you want it to be about. You want it to be as fair and equal as it can be because both teams obviously have earned the right to be there. But, and Eddie, you talked about like, oh, this is, they're only thinking about themselves. There's nobody they're hurting more than themselves with this stuff because you're killing your ticket gates. There's just nothing about it that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it just goes back. I mean, as a whole, the organization, I remember this past spring, they were playing and this is a very small thing, and probably I'm one of 10 people that even care about this, but they were going to have the state championships for high school golf, for 18 holes one day. And I guarantee you it's just because they didn't want to deal with another day because there was some rain. And it's just small stuff like that really kind of peeves me off.
All right.
That's my OSAA golf high school rant.
Like
Eddie's like mad but not furious because he's peeved. I've never heard Eddie just kind of half-ass it like that. Like that, a peeve?
It's because it's just a joke.
It was like a Kanye West, George Bush doesn't care about black people moment. The OSSA doesn't care about the kids.
Okay, moving on.
We just pissed a whole bunch of people off.
Hey, I was just saying there was like that moment. I'm not even going to...
Joe has a man bun and he's a millennial and he believes in multiple best friends. So don't get too mad.
Are you sending him my way? I was just quoting the thing.
Hold on.
The thing.
Best friend 2 is calling me. I'll be right back.
Okay, so Bedlam coming up. One of the two biggest stories, I think, are one, Jordan Evans and his health. Two, the weather. Because we both know these are two very explosive offenses. I'm looking at the forecast right now. 70% chances of precipitation. 47 degrees for a high, 36 degrees for a low. I don't know exactly. I think by tomorrow we'll have some better models of hourly when this is going to start. I tried to look at it this morning. It only went to Friday. But it could have an effect on the game.
Yeah, I definitely think it could. And,
It'll have an effect on Eddie for sure.
Yeah, standing out in it. I'm glad that I've been conditioned out in Morgantown for something like this. I wish it was snow because I think that'd be a lot easier to handle than just a kind of a nagging cold rain. I think that's going to be the worst. But who it favors if it does rain. I think you could say that Oklahoma defensively would love if it just downpoured the entire game. I think that that would affect Mason Rudolph and the Oklahoma State
because they can run it
game
better, yeah.
and they can run it better. But I don't know. I've been back and forth. I don't know. I'm starting to come around to the idea that I might pick OU. I know last week I said there was no chance, but I don't know. We'll see.
You were out of sorts last week.
Yeah, the closer we get, I think that I probably end up picking OU, but I don't know. There's nothing defensively that I've seen out of Oklahoma that makes me think that they can just go out there and stop and shut down Mason Rudolph.
Here is before we start breaking it down. Here's Jordan Evans. A little discussion I had with him about the weather this weekend.
I don't know if you've looked at the weather. Do you guys keep track of that?
No, we don't. We don't care what the weather's like. We just go out there and play.
So if everybody's probably saying it's going to be wet and rainy and cold, you don't even think about that.
Exactly. Yeah. No. What for? The rain's not going to hurt you, or the snow, or whatever they expect to have. So
do you have to protect against getting it in your mind like, okay, well, if it's going to be bad conditions, we're not going to have to cover as many passes?
No, that's not very smart. So I try my best not to think about it, because if I do that, then I'll just go in there lackadaisical, and I don't ever want to do that. So I never
hating that I'm even bringing it up.
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
sure.
You know what I'm saying? I do my best not to even think about stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the West Virginia game. I think they knew, there might be some snow in this thing, but nobody really knew for sure. And it was kind of on and off all day, so it was never really steady. So you didn't really know what to prepare for. OU goes out, they drop their first 3 passes, and it turned into a running game. And then by the time it opened up back into a passing game, some of those guys like Jordan Evans and Jordan Parker kind of gave up some big plays.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we were talking about the weather earlier, and Eddie's exactly right about Oklahoma's defense not being able to stop anybody, and the reason they won that West Virginia game wasn't because they stopped their offense, is because West Virginia outgained Oklahoma. It was because they turned the ball over in adverse conditions. They fumbled it 3 times, a lot of times in the red zone, about to score. And so that's something that when you create that variable change with the weather, it helps Oklahoma's defense. So they can rely on their running game. They can rely on Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon, and they can trust that Baker Mayfield will take care of it. And then now their defense has an opportunity to maybe make some plays and get some possessions that they might not have otherwise if it was a sunny, bright day.
Josh, let me ask you, you worked on the Monday Morning Idiot after that game. From when Jordan Evans got hurt, they gave up rushing yards before he got hurt, but how bad was it after he left the game and Reuben Hunter was in there?
Well, Joe said something last week, and I didn't really notice it until I was re-listening or listening again to the podcast.
That makes sense.
And it was something along the lines of, they're not going to replace Reuben Hunter unless he's out of position, which he's not going to be. And I think that's exactly right. Reuben Hunter was where he needed to be, but Reuben Hunter's not a guy that's going to play at the point of contact. He's a smaller, undersized player that, let's just be honest, there's a reason he was a walk-on. He's a guy that's going to provide you good practice reps and do all the things you want him to do and give your offense a good look. But he's not a guy that's going to win one-on-one battles, whether it's coverage or beating a block. That's not the point. So you kept getting these situations, and especially against offenses that run like West Virginia, and Oklahoma State will surely do some of the same and has done some before, where you get these quarterback run options. Well, then you're really having to deal with 11 players. So Oklahoma loses the numeric advantage that you used to have. So you're going to get into these situations where if Jordan Evans can't play or if he's not ready to go full speed, you end up with Reuben Hunter having to deal with a fullback, and then if he doesn't beat that block, then Mason Rudolph or the running back or whoever else is in space is just in space. It's not like, we've got a guy to tackle that guy. You have no one to contend with him.
Yeah, and we've been around Mike Stoops, and Curtis Bolton's been brought up the last 2-3 weeks, and each time Mike kind of gives this response of, yeah, he's there. He's a guy. He'll be in the rotation, but you never get the feeling that they're looking to put in Bolton if Hunter doesn't do it right. I think Hunter just seems to be the guy that they're going to go with if Evans can't go.
Well, we've talked to the coaches. I'll maybe talk to Bob today to get a further update, but Jordan Evans has been a subject all week. Here was Bob yesterday on Monday during his press conference. Or maybe not.
How's Jordan Evans, and is there any question about him being able to play?
I'm sure there'll be a question, but right now he rested all last week, and he's scheduled to do some things today, and I'm fairly confident by the end of the week he'll be ready to play.
So that was on Monday. Now, last night, we got to talk to Mike Stoops, and he was asked the same question about how he's doing.
Has Jordan Evans been making progress toward getting healthy this week?
Yeah, he practiced yesterday and today. He didn't. It was limited, but he practiced both days. We want to make sure we're cautious with him. He's He's played more football than anybody on our team, and he understands the game plan and what Oklahoma State's all about. So we just got to make sure we're cautious with him and make sure we can get him on the field. But he'll be ready to go.
Basically, we'll let him just hang out at practice all he wants and not mess with that hammy and make sure he's good to go Saturday.
I've never really gotten the feeling that Jordan Evans isn't going to play this weekend.
I haven't either.
I've always kind of thought, even going back to Morgantown and kind of seeing him after the game and how he was interacting with people, it never really gave me the thought that this is a very serious
Wasn't really
injury.
Limping around a lot.
No, he was dancing and stuff on the sidelines. So I don't know. It is something to watch, and I think that it's worth noting. But I think that he'll play.
Did Joe or Josh, Eddie and I were on the road listening to it in the car, but did you guys catch much of the OSU-TCU game?
Yeah, I caught enough of it. Josh, how much? I mean, OSU looked really impressive. I mean, their defense was outstanding, especially when you consider how well TCU's been playing.
Yeah, that was what stood out to me. And I probably watched a quarter and a half, kind of as you saw OSU really just taking over that game. You thought, okay, I'll come back and watch the rest of that later. That's actually the game I'm going to use to do the Under the Hood this week. So I've actually pretty much, once we end this podcast, I'll start in on that. So, yeah, I like what I see from Oklahoma State. I don't think there's any team in the conference that's improved more from what I saw, kind of going back to Central Michigan to going forward. I mean, that looked like a 7-5 team against Central Michigan, and now, I mean, they have every reason to think they can come into Norman and win.
Yeah, I think a lot of people talk about that Central Michigan game like, oh, Oklahoma State should have won it, but I don't even care about the score. Wipe out the score. The way they played in that game was so far below the level they're playing now. That was a mediocre team they were playing, and Oklahoma State played mediocre against them, and they ultimately got beaten, however you're going to talk about it. They don't play that way anymore. It almost reminds me of some of those teams they had maybe in like 2008 with Zach Robinson at the helm, where they feel a little more complete. They might not be, they might not have like a Des Bryant or an overly explosive player that you super have to worry about, but that's about as complete team as Mike Gundy's put together in Stillwater the last few years.
What did you guys think of just their offensive line, their running game, watching that game? Because I know, Mason Rudolph didn't have a lot of people thought it was maybe one of his worst games he's had this year.
I mean, Mason Rudolph to me is kind of who he is.
But I mean, he's gonna be up and down from times. I mean, he has some accuracy issues, but just their offensive line. I mean, do you see? I mean, it's against TCU. OU did run all over them too, but I mean, do you think that their offensive line is for real? That they can come into Norman and establish the run?
No, I don't. And to me, that's where the rub is in this game, especially to me. There can be no one that's rooting more for this game to get ugly than Oklahoma. They want that weather to be nasty because Oklahoma should be able to win up front with their offensive line, and I think Oklahoma's defensive line is beat up and mediocre as it really is. I think they can at least fight Oklahoma State to a stalemate up front. Like, I think that's how you want that game to go. Now, if Mason Rudolph gets hot and James Washington and Oklahoma starts having all the same problems in the secondary, that changes things considerably. But up front, I don't think Oklahoma State's special on either side of the ball.
Let me ask you this, Eddie, and you guys too, because you've watched the games at home, and sometimes you have a better view than we do. But does it seem to you guys like maybe they've been holding Gallimore and Lampkin back a little bit, like maybe they're still dinged up some? Because, I mean, basically what I saw was a lot of Jordan Wade against West Virginia. And they did mix other guys in there. Romar was in there more than he had been. But it seems like as thin as they are, they still have a lot more they aren't throwing out there.
It seems like with Romar, they're really holding the reins back on him. And, I mean, I think that even goes back to was it Baylor before West Virginia?
Yeah. He was back, remember, for Baylor.
And he suited out and he just never played. He was a lot more injured than I really thought he was. Apparently, going into that game, but then
and I think that's a groin with him, which can be really bad.
Yeah, it's tough to come back from.
That's what kept Sterling out
weeks.
At the end of his career.
They need. We talked about them last week being the bullies of the Big 12, and I asked a couple of the players this week how they're going to they're not playing on the road this weekend. They can't be, it's not them versus the world. They can't take that mentality when you have 85,000 of your own fans behind you. But I mean, I'm really interested to see if they can kind of be that bully this weekend at home, because they really haven't done it a whole lot at home.
And as good as Oklahoma State is, and as good as they've played, their elite talent, their top players, still almost feel like lesser versions of what Oklahoma has. I mean, would you rather have Baker Mayfield or Mason Rudolph? Would you rather have Samaje Perine and Joe Mixon or Justice Hill and Chris Carson? Would you rather have D.D. Westbrook or would you rather have James Washington?
I could make the argument Mason Rudolph. I think he's really, really good.
Yeah, he's really good.
So that one's probably your closest one. You can make an argument for Rudolph. But the others...
The running backs are all on OU side.
And then wide receivers probably close. And I bet OU fans would take Westbrook and OSU fans would take Washington. But I think that Oklahoma fans, you have to feel like you have the better talent. You're at home.
Can I take D.D. Westbrook against OU's defensive backs? Because I like that matchup.
If you could do that, D.D. Westbrook would already have won the Heisman this year. It's still just, it's mind-blowing to me, because I remember talking on this podcast at the beginning of the football season, what was going to be OU's strongest part of their defensive unit. And 9 times out of 10, I was going to say their secondary. I just don't understand what has happened this year they
tried to start Dakota Austin, and they didn't have Jordan Parker, and they didn't get Parrish Cobb was hurt in the preseason.
Has it hurt their secondary that they haven't been able to get pressure on the quarterback?
Oh, absolutely.
I think that's a huge part of it.
Absolutely, yeah.
I think that's huge.
They have Obo, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, look, DJ Ward's a nice player. Austin Roberts is a nice player. Their scheme with the personnel that they have, it doesn't work up front. It just doesn't. And having Will Johnson was a horrible mistake in terms of getting pressure. When you had, I mean, they needed Devontae Bond to make Eric Stryker better. Mm-hmm. Without Devontae Bond, he was a guy that just ran around the tackle.
Yeah, and he also had...
He's a speed rush guy. That was all he was. Once Devontae Bond got in the mix, they had a guy that could help him stop the run more, that freed up Eric Stryker to do some other things. They have Obo Okoronkwo, who is not as good as Eric Stryker, and they don't have Devontae Bond now.
Yeah. Even before then, Stryker had Geno Grissom on the outside. He had Jordan Phillips pushing the pocket in the middle. He always kind of had somebody to help him out with the pass rush. And Obo Okoronkwo, who, as you said, isn't as skilled a pass rusher at the college level as Eric Stryker, he doesn't have the help that Stryker had. So that pass rush isn't what it was. But to me,
and Charles Tapper,
the glaring miss here that caused the whole thing, the chink in the armor, was PJ Mbanasor and Antoine Stevens both crapped out. For whatever reason, they're unusable in Mike Stoops' eyes, and that cornerback position took
I don't think it's in Mike Stoops. I think if they were at any other school, they would not be playing.
Or whatever. Yeah, I haven't seen them. We can't go to practice, so I don't know. But for whatever reason, they're not working. They're not working here. So that created that gap. And you jump from Dakota Austin to a true freshman.
I explained both of those guys. Antoine Stevens had never backpedaled before he got to OU. It was never a technique he had ever learned. He admitted that back in the spring. Like where he played, they just let him run sideways and backwards. Never backpedaled in his entire life.
That's a little mind-blowing.
And PJ Mbanasor is a safety that's not smart enough to learn the position.
But both were brought in to play corner.
Yeah.
And both can't. Right?
But everybody wanted PJ Mbanasor.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's Oklahoma's fault, but there's your cause. That's it right there. PJ Mbanasor and Antoine Stevens were guys that
they've been lucky that Jordan Parker's as good as he is as a true freshman.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, Jordan Parker's Josh's guy. Has he lived up to your expectations?
He has, and I think
he's better as a true freshman than Jordan Thomas was. He is.
What's that?
He's better as a true freshman than Jordan Thomas was.
I don't know that he has that same kind of upside that Thomas did, but I agree. He's been a better player.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would have expected a few more kind of interceptions, big plays, kind of what you get with that freshman. Yeah, he may give up a long pass, but hey, he's going to be aggressive and make a play here. So I thought there would be a little more give and take. But like we talked about, guys, with no pressure, I mean, you guys, we can bag on the defensive backs all we want to. I don't care if it's Patrick Peterson out there covering, guys. If you're covering for 7 or 8 seconds, you're going to lose. Yeah, I mean, that's just not a matchup you're going to win consistently.
The other thing is, I think we all thought that Ahmad Thomas would make a jump this year, and he is playing worse than he did as a junior.
He seemed to make a jump from his sophomore to his junior year.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought he played pretty well last year.
I thought it would be kind of a Gabe Lynn deal where he had that senior year where you're like, okay, he's a fringy Big 12 kind of guy.
I think that's just the most frustrating thing is that, you see Ahmad in the way that he plays and know that he's a team captain, and then you see when he leaves the game and you see the plays that Will Sunderland made down in Dallas. Yeah. I think that's the biggest frustration with the Mike Stoops basher people that just can't stand the guy.
But you know what? Stephen Parker's become a really good player. I mean,
yeah,
he's good. He's been their saving grace.
Has the secondary? It's fair to say the secondary's gotten better though over I think the last 4 games maybe
because of Parker. I think Jordan Parker
a little bit more edge to him, I guess, in his game. That'd be the best way to put it.
He just stabilized.
And Thomas seems to be getting beat less deep downfield, which also might be a byproduct of having to worry less about other guys on the field. But I think it's kind of spread across where they're not giving up as many huge plays through the air as they did early in the season. But but then now you're giving up plays on in the ground game, and it feels like with Mike Stoops, in every year he's been at Oklahoma, maybe except for last year, it's like a leaky boat. He plugs one hole, and then another hole you start leaking. So he fixes the secondary starts playing well. And now you're banged up front and you can't stop the run. I don't know how this defense finds a way to play a full, complete style and shuts down both with the personnel they have and the system they run. And how banged up they are.
Look, I just look at it this way. How many times has Oklahoma State come into Norman and beat Oklahoma when they were a pretty good football team?
Twice.
They did it when they were 8-5 in the worst season that Bob Stoops probably has ever had here.
And not to mention did it because of probably the most bonehead decision in Bob Stoops' tenure.
Horrible decision by him, but he also had a terrible quarterback, a bad offensive coordinator. And the loss before that was just OSU was a great team, and OU wasn't that good.
Baker Mayfield would be by far the best quarterback for Oklahoma to lose to Oklahoma State at home. Because even in 2001, when that was a good team, I mean, Nate Hibble...
No, he wasn't good.
He wasn't good. He especially wasn't good that
Landry
night.
Jones is okay. He's back up in the NFL. That's all he'll ever be.
The book has been written. He is what he is. He has a lot of records at Oklahoma, but if you gave me the option of him or
any other quarterback except Nate Hibble, probably.
Yeah, I would probably take that other guy.
Or Paul Thompson.
Paul Thompson?
Yeah. I'd take him over Paul Thompson.
Now, if I wanted somebody
Peterson, then
if I wanted someone to lead the team prayer before the game, I'd probably take Landry.
There's nothing wrong with prayer, Eddie.
I'm just saying.
You're not going to be that evil.
I'm just saying that I would probably take Landry if I was looking for that guy, a team chaplain.
There's nothing wrong with that.
I'm not saying there is.
All right, that's going to do it. Eddie's evil is pouring out now.
We're back.
We really are out of time. I don't think I've told you this, Josh. I have to go speak to a group full of kids at the journalism school today.
I don't know if...
I think my first message is going to be...
I don't know how to feel about that.
Raise your hand if you follow me on Twitter, and then my next message is going to be, stop that.
Ignore everything you hear me say on Twitter, everything you read.
Don't talk to me. You don't know me.
I think Carson's in the class, so...
Is he?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting.
I had that class back in the day. It's a lot of fun.
Eddie had it.
Too. Yeah.
Carey, have you worked on a speech? Have you thought about how you want to go at it, or are you just going in there and ad-libbing from the start?
I made a little outline last night about 12:30 before I went to bed. I got to get out of here. I got to go shower. I don't think I'm going to shave though.
College
Let them know what a real
care.
reporter looks like.
Yeah,
no beat reporters going in clean shaved.
Yeah, all of us are not clean shaven right now, so that seems like you're giving an accurate...
I will at least shower for the kids.
Where's it at? Is it in
Gaylord?
Oh, is it in Gaylord?
Room 3,000 something.
Oh, third floor.
Yeah,
3160.
That's the
third floor.
graduate college domain.
It's like back to the left. Yep. I think.
So yeah, that's going to be interesting. I don't have a Heisman vote, but I get to talk to College kids.
Are you ready when they start? Because there's a Q&A portion.
Yes, there is.
Are you worried about? Are there any questions you're worried you might get? Or you feel just ready to handle anything?
No, not really.
Oh man, if we knew one of those kids like Twitter handle and could feed them some stuff, that'd be amazing.
Shut up, Josh.
About to say, I think we might.
I think we do.
This podcast is officially over.
Saboteur.
All right, I'll let you guys know how it goes last week. Unless OU loses, then all hell will break loose, and
it might go viral on YouTube
care.
if something goes crazy.
No, I mean if OU loses, that's when things go crazy.
Yeah.
So, anybody, Eddie, you still picking OSU?
I don't know yet. Probably not. But
I'm picking OU. I can tell you that right now.
I don't know. I might do it just to do it.
Just to be evil.
Yeah. I just I don't know. I'm caught in between the middle of thinking that OU will play really well, and the other side of it thinking that I just don't think that OU can stop anybody defensively.
I think they can stop OSU enough.
I think it comes down to, can OU force a couple turnovers? Can they get after Mason Rudolph? Can they get a strip sack? Especially if the weather's bad, I think that the turnover issue is going to be very important. And outside of the offense and defensive things, I was going to tweet some about this afternoon. Special teams has been really important in this game. When you go back to 2013 and the Jalen Saunders punt return, the fake field goal with Grant Botham to Honeycutt. 2014, of course, was Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
And then wasn't last year the Alex Ross kick return down to the 2.
Yeah.
That kind of changed momentum because, I went back and watched the game yesterday, and OSU, it's a 10-7 game. OSU's winning with like 2:30 left in the first quarter, and then all of a sudden it's 41-7 at halftime.
Joe Mixon has that big run.
Or 41-10 at halftime.
Yeah.
They scored 30 points in the second quarter. That's a lot closer game than but I don't know. I'm gonna it might go down to just who I feel like choosing Friday night when I send Josh the game predict.
Didn't Mark Clayton also have a punt return for touchdown up in Stillwater, like 03 or something? I feel like he did.
He might have.
Was that Mark Bradley?
No, I think it was Clayton. I think Clayton.
Well, Mark Bradley had the catch where he fumbled it over the middle. And
that's what it was. Yeah,
tapped it to himself, and then it freaked everybody out so much that the defense just stood there.
I think it was Clayton. I think Perkins was out for some reason. Clayton fills in, and his first return, he takes it to the house, if I recall correctly.
Was it 2010? The Cameron Kenny.
Yes.
James Hanna.
Yes. Oh, that was a great game.
It's tough to beat
because they
that
played
game,
in Stillwater back-to-back years
in 2010 and 2011.
Schedule, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, those. The Bedlam series
That's
has
the best thing
been
I've ever
awesome.
seen Landry Jones do in a game.
That was a great game.
Next year was the worst thing I've ever seen him do in a game.
Going back up there and they just got killed.
The empty ball where he throws it in.
He fumbled it twice trying to throw it.
Yeah.
That's worse than a butt fumble.
That's what
it was his butt. It was OU's butt fumble.
That's what Landry brings. Do you remember that stuff about Landry more, or the records first when you think of Landry Jones?
Oh, definitely the bad stuff.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of going to be his legacy, which is almost crazy when you think about the all-time Big 12.
And I don't really place a lot of stock in his records because he was throwing to one guy.
Yeah.
When Ryan Broyles went down with that torn ACL against Texas A&M, that offense fell apart.
Oh yeah.
It was rudderless.
I don't think Kenny Stills could ever fully become the number one. And the offense never quite fully clicked with Stills as the number one the way it did with Broyles.
I think I'm going to probably pick OU.
That was like a 10-minute pick.
We were giving Eddie some time to think about it.
I already talked into it.
I think we've just hit the longest podcast ever, so we're going to say goodbye. For Eddie Radosevich, who was very talkative this week, I appreciate you actually showing up for the show this week.
It was good.
Joe Duvall, we didn't even get into the Twitter fighting last night. We'll just leave it. I don't want to recognize losers.
There you go.
Josh McQuistion.
Leave the trolls underground.
Thank you for joining us from your home base as well. And we'll be back next week to have Bedlam. Sooners go to the Sugar Bowl. They'll play Auburn. If they go to the Alamo, it'll either be Colorado or USC. Losers will go to the Alamo. Winners to the Sugar Bowl. That's how the Big 12 works. So since nobody's going to the college football playoff. All right, that's going to do it for us on the Unofficial 40. Go check us out on iTunes. Give us a review if you don't mind. Whatever you think. It's all 5 stars so far, so
don't tempt them.
Please keep it that way. If I believe today's show was fantastic, especially the best friend talk. So go give us a rating on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play. We'll be on SoundCloud as well. So thank you so much for joining us and listening. Go check out Soonerscoop.com as well. Crimson Corner is the place to be for Sooner fans, so give us a sign up. Check us out. You can go monthly until you figure out you have to be there all the time and join for a year. So go check us out on Soonerscoop.com if you're not already a member. Josh is doing great work with recruiting. Eddie, Joe, post-practice updates, all that stuff. We'll see you next time on the Unofficial 40 here at Soonerscoop.com.